Kenya is endowed with a bounty of natural resources, with its mineral wealth being a significant contributor to its economy. Gold, the shining star of Kenyan minerals, is found in various regions, with the Kakamega Forest hosting the largest gold reserve in East Africa. Other valuable minerals include iron ore, limestone, soda ash, and niobium, used in steel production and jet engines.
What?
When this material is not in, these stones will be coming closer to these in terms of the color.
I see. All right.
Yes.
Oh, you just want my face hidden, eh?
It's the largest stone recovered in the world through a processing plant.
This is absolutely shocking. A massive lithium discovery has been confirmed inside Nigeria, and this is not ordinary lithium. Experts say the quality is among the highest ever recorded, the same metal that powers electric cars, smartphones, and military technology. This instantly changes Nigeria's position on the global map. Lithium is the fuel of the future, and Nigeria is now sitting on it. But here's
Gold mine project, largest gold deposit so far, quantified in Uganda, estimated at 12.5 tons of mineable gold. Investor Wagagi's initial investment.
Mrima Hill, a lush green forest near the Indian Ocean, is believed to contain rare earth elements and niobium. This mineral is vital to producing steel, smartphones and electric vehicles. In 2013, British-Canadian company estimated that these deposits could be worth more than $62 billion.
Has adequate deposits of coltan. And for those of us who are not technical, coltan is a mineral which is responsible for your communication gadgets, the cameras you are using, the phones you are using, the laptops and any other communication material. Coltan is a key mineral that facilitates those particular gadgets. So Embu County.
Africa is standing at the edge of one of the most consequential economic transformations of the modern era. Beneath its soil lies a concentration of rare earth minerals and critical metals that the global economy can no longer function without. These resources power smartphones, electric vehicles, wind turbines, military systems, satellites, and artificial intelligence infrastructure. As demand accelerates and supply chains strain, Africa's estimated multi-trillion-dollar rare earth potential is no longer a geological curiosity. It is becoming a geopolitical force capable of reshaping global technology leadership and challenging long-established dominance. For decades, rare earth supply chains were treated as an invisible backbone of modern life. Consumers enjoyed advanced technology without considering where the materials came from or who controlled them. That illusion has shattered. Trade disputes, sanctions, and export controls have revealed how vulnerable global tech industries are. Two disruptions in access to these minerals. What was once a technical issue has become a strategic one, and Africa now finds itself at the center of this shift. Africa's rare earth potential is not limited to a single mineral or region. The continent holds vast deposits of lithium, cobalt, manganese, graphite, nickel, and other elements essential for clean energy and advanced electronics. These resources are spread across multiple countries, reducing the risk of monopoly and creating opportunities. For regional cooperation, collectively, their value is estimated in the trillions of dollars when factoring in long-term demand, downstream processing, and industrial applications. For years, much of this potential remained untapped or exported in raw form. Extraction often benefited foreign companies more than local economies, reinforcing patterns of dependency. That model is now under pressure. African governments and regional blocs are increasingly aware that exporting unprocessed minerals locks them into low-value roles while others capture the profits from manufacturing and innovation. The rare earth boom unfolding today is different from past resource cycles. It is not driven solely by commodity prices but by structural changes in how the global economy operates. Electrification, decarbonization, digitalization, and defense modernization all depend on materials Africa possesses in abundance. Unlike oil or gas, these minerals are not easily substituted. Control over them translates directly into influence over future technologies. This reality has triggered a strategic awakening across the continent. policies are emerging that prioritize local processing, value addition, and technology transfer. Mining licenses are increasingly tied to commitments to build refineries, processing plants, and industrial hubs. The goal is clear: move up the value chain and ensure that Africa captures more than extraction rents. This shift threatens existing power balances, particularly in the technology sector. The United States built much of its tech dominance on reliable access to global resources combined with advanced manufacturing and innovation ecosystems. If Africa restructures how rare earths flow into global markets, it could alter the cost structures and supply security that U.S. tech firms rely on. The challenge for the United States is not merely competition for access, but the possibility of losing leverage. Historically, control over supply chains allowed major powers to influence prices, standards, and innovation trajectories. A more assertive Africa reduces that leverage when resource-rich countries coordinate policies, diversify partners, and insist on fairer terms. External actors must adapt. Africa's rare earth boom is also attracting unprecedented interest from non-Western partners. Investment proposals increasingly come bundled with infrastructure development, industrial training, and long-term offtake agreements. These arrangements appeal to governments seeking tangible development outcomes rather than short-term revenue. The result is a more competitive environment in which Africa has greater bargaining power. This competition is reshaping global supply chains. Manufacturers are reassessing where they source materials and where they locate production. Some are exploring partnerships that integrate African processing into global manufacturing networks. Others are concerned about potential restrictions or higher costs if Africa prioritizes domestic and regional industries. The United States faces a strategic dilemma. On one hand, it needs secure access to rare earths to sustain its technology sector and defense capabilities. On the other, its traditional approach to resource extraction and trade offers limited incentives for African countries seeking industrialization. Bridging this gap requires a shift from transactional relationships to long-term partnerships built on shared value creation. Africa's growing confidence is rooted in hard lessons from the past. Resource wealth did not automatically translate into prosperity. Exporting raw materials without building domestic capacity left economies vulnerable to price swings and external shocks. The current rare earth boom is seen as a chance to break that cycle. Regional coordination plays a critical role in this strategy. By harmonizing policies, setting shared standards, and pooling infrastructure, African states can avoid undercutting each other. This collective approach strengthens negotiating positions and reduces the risk of a race to the bottom. It also signals to global markets that Africa is serious about managing its resources strategically. The implications for global technology are profound. Rare earths are not just inputs. They shape innovation pathways. Access determines which technologies are scalable and affordable. If Africa channels more of its resources into regional manufacturing, it could become a hub for battery production, renewable energy components, and electronics assembly. This would reduce dependence on traditional tech centers and diversify innovation ecosystems. Such a shift does not mean the collapse of U.S. tech dominance overnight. The United States retains advantages in research, capital markets, and intellectual property. However, dominance is relative, not absolute. As supply chains diversify and new industrial centers emerge, influence becomes more distributed. Africa's role as a resource gatekeeper amplifies this trend. The environmental dimension adds another layer of complexity. Rare earth mining can be environmentally damaging if poorly managed. Africa's push for value addition is increasingly linked to sustainability standards. By investing in cleaner extraction and processing technologies, African producers aim to position themselves as responsible suppliers in a world that values environmental performance. This focus on sustainability challenges narratives that portray African resource development as inherently exploitative or destructive. It reframes the conversation around innovation and stewardship. Countries that can supply critical minerals responsibly gain reputational advantages that translate into market access and investment. The rare earth boom also intersects with geopolitics in unexpected ways. Control over critical minerals is now viewed as a national security issue. Governments are stockpiling resources, subsidizing domestic production, and seeking to reduce exposure to geopolitical risk. Africa's decisions about export policies and partnerships, thus, carry global security implications. For the United States, adapting to this environment requires rethinking assumptions. Access can no longer be taken for granted. Engagement must acknowledge Africa's agency and development priorities. Attempts to pressure or bypass African producers risk backfiring, accelerating diversification away from U.S. markets. The private sector is already adjusting. Tech companies are investing in alternative supply chains, recycling technologies, and material substitution research. Yet these measures have limits. Recycling cannot meet surging demand, and substitutes often compromise performance. Primary production remains essential, and Africa's role in that production is growing. Africa's rare earth boom also has social implications. If managed well, it can create jobs, fund education, and support technological ecosystems. If mismanaged, it risks repeating patterns of inequality and environmental harm. This tension underscores the importance of governance and transparency. There is growing recognition that control over resources must be matched by institutional capacity. Regulatory frameworks, revenue management systems, and community engagement are critical to ensuring that the boom benefits society broadly. African governments are increasingly aware that legitimacy depends on visible outcomes. The narrative of Africa as a passive supplier is fading. In its place is a vision of Africa as a strategic actor shaping global industries. This shift challenges outdated perceptions and forces a reassessment of global economic hierarchies. The potential impact on U.S. tech dominance lies not in confrontation but in rebalancing. As Africa leverages its rare earth wealth to build industrial capacity, it reduces asymmetries that once favored established powers. The global tech ecosystem becomes more multipolar, with innovation and production spread across regions. This transformation is still unfolding. Outcomes will depend on policy choices, investment patterns, and global demand trajectories. But the direction is clear. Africa's rare earth resources are no longer a footnote in global economics. They are a central factor in shaping the future of technology. The United States can respond in two ways: resist the shift or engage constructively. Resistance risks isolation and supply insecurity. Engagement offers a chance to participate in a more balanced global system. The choice will shape not only tech dominance but the broader relationship between Africa and the world's leading economies. In the end, Africa's $3.5 trillion rare earth boom represents more than economic potential. It symbolizes a broader assertion of control over destiny. By redefining how resources are managed and who benefits from them, Africa is challenging old patterns of dominance and opening space for a more equitable global order. The question is no longer whether Africa's rare earth wealth can influence global technology. It already is. The real question is how the world will adapt to a future in which Africa is not just a supplier, but a shepherd of the technological age. As Africa's rare earth sector expands, the conversation increasingly shifts from geology to power. What matters now is not just what lies beneath the ground, but who controls extraction, processing, pricing, and access. These decisions determine who sets the pace of technological advancement in the decades ahead. Rare earths are no longer passive commodities. They are strategic levers, and Africa is learning how to pull them. The transformation underway challenges long-standing assumptions about global supply chains. For much of the modern era, technological leadership rested on a predictable flow of raw materials from the global south to industrial centers in the global north. Innovation flourished where manufacturing clustered, while resource-rich regions remained peripheral. That imbalance is now being questioned as Africa seeks to integrate resource production with industrial development. This shift introduces new uncertainties for established tech powers. U.S. companies have thrived in an environment where inputs were abundant, affordable, and politically insulated. As African states reassert control over rare earths, those conditions change. Supply contracts become subject to new regulations, local processing requirements, and geopolitical considerations. The resulting complexity forces companies to rethink sourcing strategies that were once taken for granted. Africa's approach is increasingly coordinated rather than fragmented. Regional trade frameworks and industrial strategies aim to prevent individual countries from being played against one another. By aligning policies on royalties, export controls, and environmental standards, African producers strengthen their collective position. This coordination reduces the leverage external buyers once held by exploiting competition among suppliers. The emphasis on value addition marks a fundamental departure from past models. Instead of shipping raw minerals abroad, African governments are investing in refining, smelting, and component manufacturing. These investments are designed to anchor supply chains locally, creating jobs and building technical expertise. Over time, this can give rise to ecosystems capable of innovation rather than mere extraction. Such ecosystems have implications far beyond Africa, when processing and manufacturing are geographically closer to resource sources. The structure of global trade shifts, transportation costs change, supply chain risks are redistributed, and new centers of expertise emerge. For U.S. tech firms accustomed to centralized manufacturing hubs, this decentralization introduces both challenges and opportunities. The challenge lies in adapting quickly enough. Building alternative supply chains outside Africa is costly and time-consuming. Domestic mining initiatives face environmental opposition and long permitting timelines. Recycling and substitution can mitigate some risks, but they cannot fully replace primary production. As a result, engagement with African producers becomes increasingly unavoidable. Africa's bargaining power is amplified by timing. The global push toward clean energy and digital infrastructure has accelerated demand for rare earths faster than new supply can come online elsewhere. This demand-supply imbalance gives African producers leverage to negotiate better terms. The urgency of climate goals and technological competition limits the ability of external actors to delay or disengage. There is also a psychological dimension to this shift. Control over critical minerals confers confidence. African states are no longer approaching negotiations from a position of scarcity or desperation. Instead, they are asserting expectations around partnership, technology transfer, and long-term investment. This confidence reshapes diplomatic interactions and economic relationships alike. For the United States, the implications extend into national security. Rare earths underpin defense systems, aerospace technologies, and advanced computing. Dependence on external suppliers introduces vulnerabilities that policymakers are keenly aware of. Africa's growing influence in this space forces Washington to consider how to secure access without reverting to coercive tactics that could damage broader relationships. The path forward is not straightforward. Cooperation requires trust, and trust must be built on mutual benefit. African governments are wary of arrangements that replicate old patterns of extraction without development. They seek assurances that partnerships will support industrial growth and skills development. Meeting these expectations requires a shift in mindset from short-term procurement to long-term collaboration. The private sector plays a critical role in this transition. Companies that recognize Africa's strategic importance early and invest in local capacity are likely to gain durable advantages. Those that resist change risk exclusion or unfavorable terms. Market forces thus reinforce geopolitical trends, accelerating the reconfiguration of supply chains. Africa's rare earth boom also invites introspection within the continent. Resource wealth alone does not guarantee prosperity. Governance, transparency, and environmental stewardship are essential to translating mineral abundance into sustainable development. The stakes are high, and missteps could undermine public support for new policies. There is growing awareness that legitimacy depends on inclusive outcomes. Communities near mining sites expect tangible benefits, from employment to infrastructure. Failure to deliver risks social unrest and political backlash. As governments navigate these pressures, they must balance ambition with accountability. The environmental dimension remains a critical test. Rare earth extraction can have significant ecological impacts if poorly managed. Africa's aspiration to lead responsibly in this sector requires investment in cleaner technologies and robust regulation. Success would not only protect local ecosystems but also enhance Africa's standing as a supplier aligned with global sustainability goals. As Africa positions itself as a steward of critical minerals, it challenges stereotypes that have long shaped global discourse. The narrative shifts from dependency to agency, from extraction to innovation. This shift has cultural and psychological resonance, reinforcing broader movements toward economic self-determination. The potential impact on U.S. tech dominance is gradual but cumulative. Dominance erodes not through sudden collapse but through redistribution of capabilities and influence. As Africa builds industrial capacity and asserts control over inputs, the relative advantages of established tech centers narrow, competition intensifies, and leadership becomes contested rather than assumed. This does not signal the end of American innovation. The United States retains strengths that are difficult to replicate. However, innovation thrives in ecosystems, and ecosystems depend on stable, equitable supply chains. Africa's role in shaping those chains means it will increasingly influence the direction of technological progress. Global governance structures